As far as the potential crisis, or the crisis in Eastern Europe and Eastern Ukraine, I think the reality is that NATO would be very hard-pressed, and they would find it very difficult to put into the field, at sea, or into the air the means required to, particularly on land, I would assess, to counter any form of Russian adventurism.
Does that mean then that Western Europe is essentially defenceless against Russia?
It means that, well, now you're getting into the whole question about NATO, about Europe and America. Certainly, Western Europe would not be able to defend against, in my view, against Russia without significant support from the Americans. I think NATO would find it really difficult to get a division out of the door in quick time.
That's 20,000?
20,000 people out of the door in quick time. Because effectively, and certainly in Western Europe, what we have seen progressively is a dismantling of military capability.
Do you appreciate that effectively saying NATO needs to rearm, which is what I think you are saying, is a very unpopular message in this time of economic stringency?
I've no doubt it's an unpopular message, but it's a message that our political leadership need to take home and listen to and act on if they're serious about ensuring that NATO has the means to defend itself in future. If you look across the NATO alliance, only 4 nations out of 28 spend more than the minimum of 2% on GDP that all 28 nations have signed up to around the North Atlantic Council table. So you've got significant economic powerhouses within the alliance who spend well below the 2% of GDP on defence. And if NATO is serious about this, it is going to have to rearm. It is going to have to rebuild capability. European nations are going to have to put their money in their pocket, put their hands in their pockets to spend more money on defence.
But Libya, where NATO helped topple Colonel Gaddafi, shows the risks of taking action. In recent days, Tripoli airport has been largely destroyed by rival militias as civil war grips the country. NATO intervened to protect the people of Benghazi from their former leader. So what responsibility does it bear for the subsequent mess?
NATO was tasked by the United Nations to protect, and NATO did the job very effectively. And of course, when that campaign came to an end, or that air campaign came to an end with the murder of Gaddafi and the collapse of the Gaddafi regime, NATO was stood by, had done the contingency planning necessary to go in and support the whatever Libyan government emerged from that chaos if it was required. The message very clearly was no requirement, no desire for any form of foreign intervention, so NATO stands back. And the resulting chaos is plain and evident for all to see. But this is just one of the realities, I think, of the strategic context that we see at the moment.